I remember when we the multicolored paint on my skin or something. Oh, that was not fun to actually have live on the thing. Hmm. Hmm. Well, all right. I'll have my cast open here on the side. Make sure to have the track map open as well. If you're joining us this evening, appreciate it for sure, for sure. All right, that looks good there. Oh, I've been invited to a party now. Great. Oh, let me get myself a drink real quick so that I can have some. Look at that. I've got the light, so it's right in here. It's not giving me glare. Should be on slate for full qualifying tonight as well as our 50% race distance race tonight. It looks like they're all just going to do the one lap in the Q1 session, and then they're going to move on to Q2, and that's going to kind of be because I mean, there almost should be an option to do a two-session qualifying like that. Because say you do have like 15 drivers, you can't get enough to do a full quali. At least do the two sessions. That would be good, and I think that's kind of what they're going to do. Uh, but yeah, should have at least 14, maybe 15 on the grid tonight. We actually had a good turnout last time out in Baku, which I did not expect. That I'm going to say. I was not ready to cast last time out because when I looked earlier in the day, it was only 11 guys, and I said, well, that's not really enough for me to have a respectable cast. And then came race time, we had 16. So that was kind of what happened in Baku, but we're here now in Hungary. Only a couple of rounds left in the season, but of course that's not the story on tap for today. That's not the obviously that's not the big ongoings tonight. We will get to that, but let's take a look at the calendar real quick. So only Paul Ricard and Yas Marina after that. But it looks as if, I mean, I'm not going to say our driver standings are pretty. I'm not going to say they're all set in stone, but it does appear that we do have ourselves at least the top three ready to go. But well, it'll be said. I think it's almost very similar to that of when Mario Andretti won his title back in '78, I believe he did. There's '77, '78, and obviously the death of Roland Ratzenberger, not Roland Ratzenberger. Who am I talking about? Ronnie Peterson, yeah. And it kind of put a bit of a shadow on the proceedings for that season. That's kind of what's happened here, unfortunately, with Nick Nack. Well, we can dive into that more once we're ready to go, but well, only a 6-point gap between top two here. Just a couple of minutes to go here before race time, I believe. The drivers are going to be sporting the black helmets tonight. Well, I hope you all are having a good evening here. We're going to have ourselves at least a two-session quali. It's not going to be full quali as in the 3 sessions, but I think we'll at least get Q2 and Q3 with some meaning here, with how they've kind of done it. But we'll get to that soon enough. Hopefully we'll get a couple more here. I think Owa's supposed to. No, Owa's already here. So who are we just waiting on? At least Charlie Golf, I think, is the only other one we're waiting on, and we'll be kind of ready to go. But I think maybe we could even take the minute to wait for him because, quite honestly, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Oh, my phone's just buzzed. That was interesting. I just saw my phone buzz and it moved the whole damn table or the whole phone. How did I get that thing I was just looking at here? There you go. That looks pretty good, actually, like that. So now we've got our track map and we've got our stream kind of in the corner. Let me tell you something. This has been the biggest like benefit. Like obviously having good internet is helpful. I've never really had that in my life, I'll admit. But what I do know is that having this um, and having the ability to actually go side by side, like being able to watch the stream as it's going on, it's actually quite helpful. I tell you what, it is getting late. I'm not usually up this late, at least when it's not Wednesday. Wednesday's the one anomaly to the week where I'm up this late. But, again, the racing has been very good. I think we are just waiting for one driver. Who it is, I don't know. I think it's Charlie Golf. Well, Urban has given the green light. I'll be ready to go here in just a minute. Looks like we only have 13 for the time being, although I do think Charlie Golf's going to be joining us shortly. Ten seconds. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to what is undoubtedly a somber edition of the CCRL Elite Tier as we celebrate the life of Nick Nack Paddywhack, the former Alfa Romeo driver taken from us way too soon. Got a couple of proceedings coming up in the race for that, but Hotspot on the call with you here at the Hungaro Ring. We were slated for full quali tonight, but I think what's going to end up happening is since we've only got the eventual 14 on the grid, what we are going to do is we are going to kind of just run the one lap in Q1, get through to Q2. That's when it's going to really start picking up. But yeah, unfortunately, I mean, we'll focus on that in a little bit. Right now, what we've got coming up here is the qualifying session. Only two more rounds after this. We've got Paul Ricard next week for what is another redemption edition, and then after that, we've got the final round of the season at Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi for what'll be the full package, right? Full race, I believe full quali in that as well. But what we do have here is this: it's a rainy day here in Hungary. Hungaro Ring, situated in a town 25 miles northeast of Budapest, in a town called Magyarod. Who Daddy D Ra? I do not know. Interesting. Anyways, um, quite rainy here in Hungary today. This is one of those tracks usually takes place in the summertime in real life. There is sometimes rain, usually in the proceedings. It's not always, but more often than not, there is at least a threat of that. There was so in 2020, I believe, and there's one for the time being today. Intermediate conditions out on track, but I think this Q1 session here is really not going to matter that much. They're just going to do the one lap, pull back in, retire from the session, then we're going to move on to Q2, where we're really going to get going and have all 14 drivers, eventually 14 drivers, on the grid and trying to make themselves put together a good lap here. We do have Curveball, first one out on track at the Hungaroring circuit. One of those tracks that oftentimes I feel produces kind of lame races in real life when you get to the virtual world like this. Does prove to be some fantastic racing at this very old school circuit. But again, that is not the story on hand tonight. We're here to celebrate the life of Knick Knack Paddywhack, who passed away quite recently, taken from us way too soon. Only the age of... Oh, curveballs crashed. I can't even get through a serious note having a crash there. Yeah, taken from us way too soon. I believe only 25 years old, if I read it correctly, was taken from us unexpectedly and way too soon. What I will say is this. I didn't really know him all that well. I'd only been here commentating CCRL since the Jetta round back, I believe that was only about midway through the season. But what I do know is this: from the few races I did see of him, that was a guy who gave it his all every time he was out on the circuit. And from what I've read, definitely this league was the highlight of his week. And I tell you what, every time you saw him on track was definitely it was going to be a fun one. You knew that. You knew he was going to be competitive. You knew he was going to be towards the top end of the grid, and you knew he had a good chance of winning that race. And it does feel as if there's been a gaping hole here without him, and well, I'm sure it's going to remain that way for quite some time. We do have Pontiac Bandit, one of the first drivers out on track on a timed lap here. I don't believe we're going to see much actual timed running. We'll get up to the drivers and constructors standings now. It looks as if Bongit's having internet issues. We'll check the driver standings coming up here. Still leading the charge here is going to be that of Guzman in the McLaren. Or sorry, actually that's just points. Angry Walrus 461. Guzman 429. That's your top three. Johnny Damon on the outside looking in at 382. He's still kind of there in that championship hunt. Needs a little bit more work to do. We'll then go to the constructor standings, where still, for the time being, the Alfa Romeo team does have the lead, albeit it's only 6 points ahead of Mercedes, 739 to 733. Aston Martin third at 688. McLaren 564. AlphaTauri 423. Ferrari 421. Good battle there for fifth. Haas 375. Red Bull 333. Alpine 182. And Williams 167. So those are your constructor standings as we enter the third to last round of the season. Once again, next week coming up is going to be that of Paul Ricard, which should be a great one, as it's redemption night as well. We got the reverse point grid sprint event, and then the final round in Yas Marina. Actually, I have no idea who that was who did that on my stream there. That's like about the oddest comment of... I don't even know who this is. Well, it's some sort... I don't even know. Anyways, it looks as if the majority of the grid is going to be setting, kind of their one lap and then coming back in here. Yeah, there you go. You're starting to see the retirements now. Once again, once we get on to Q2 here in just a minute's time, we will really be kind of getting going. We could take you for a proper ride throughout this Hungary circuit. Oh, I've got another Discord message now. Who is that? Oh, that's just the Midwest server talking about the plans that it has. It's very interesting because what they're trying to do is they want to have a full no-assist kind of elite division, similar to what we have here, I believe. Whether or not that is kind of what's going to happen or not, I'm not sure, but it's definitely in discussion, so stay tuned to that. DWCJ currently the fastest time in Q1. Don't know if the weather's going to stay in through Q2. That's something we haven't spoke about yet. The weather actually taking place at the moment, as you can tell. Whether or not it's going to stay wet through in towards Q2 here, where we do get some actual racing out on track. Although I don't believe Curveball is actually going to be able to participate in that now that he's crashed out genuinely on track. That was coming out of the right-hander of turn 11, which we'll see the Red Bull of Owa go through here shortly. It was on this corner here, the right-hander, and the car got away from him quite heavily, crashed into the outside wall, and that probably will be the end of Curveball's qualifying, unless does a miracle be performed and he can actually advance into Q2 despite having crashed. But Urban has gone and retired now. We've got just a few drivers with timed laps here. John the Prince on purple at the moment. This is going to be a practice run, you know. That may actually end up what's happening. These drivers know that they're all going to make it through to Q2. You don't really have to worry about it, and that would be a good time to get some practice on the board and actually get yourself some running. You know, because that's a huge thing when you're actually in a situation like this where you can get some practice laps in to feel how this car reacts. Because the difference between having a car in time trial versus out in the actual Grand Prix like this is massively different. And both how the car feels, obviously in tire wear, car performance as well. Massively different scenarios. So to actually get the car at race pace, perhaps even race fuel loads, it's actually quite an impressive thing. That's why sometimes you'll see in the dry, you'll see some drivers go out onto, say, medium tires and just run the car for a couple laps. Even if it's just a one-session qualifying, you'll oftentimes see that. That's what I do. I know that. But John the Prince has gone fourth on his intermediate tires. We did have somebody running the wets not long ago, and it wasn't enough for the full wets. I think it may have been that of Hemp Head, but I could be wrong. He's out on track anyways. We actually look at that, the detail? No, it was Walrus and Reimer. Walrus still currently on the full wets. I think he's just kind of riding around, getting a feel for the circuit at the moment. This is one of those tracks that really, I think, it changes quite a lot. Every circuit changes a lot when it goes from the dry to the wet. This is one of the tracks I would almost argue doesn't change all that much because it's still a slippery track as it is. Obviously, the braking zones get longer. Some of these faster corners do get slower. But really, I mean, the track stays kind of the same. DRS is not that big of an influence here unless you're going down the pit straight. It's very much, I don't want to say follow the leader, but it's almost one of those tracks where you have to capitalize on drivers making mistakes around you rather than trying to capitalize and make overtakes happen, out on track. Safety cars could definitely happen. They do more often than not. So strategy gets involved. I mean, this is a very interesting circuit here in the virtual world. In real life, it's kind of just one of the races that exists on calendar. That's kind of the only thing to say about it. But when we get here where obviously it's not real life, it becomes really fun. And there's actually quite a few tracks that follow that same kind of dilemma these days. Shiesty's about a tenth slower through Sector 1. Charlie Gulf has joined. I believe has he been having connectivity issues? No, I think he's just actually going to be able to join here and get a lap going. So that'll put us 15 cars. 5 will be eliminated from Q2 to Q3. For the time being, Johnny Damon has provisional pole, or at least the first spot. Obviously, it's not going for pole. We're not really going for time in this first session. It's more of just a practice session than anything else. But, yeah, Johnny Damon's going to file it back into the pit lane here. We do have Shiesty. Purple Sector 2 from Shiesty as he makes his way into the bends of 13 and 14. Kind of fun couple of corners, this. People really don't like this last combination. I do. I think it's kind of a fun corner there. Imagine if these corners was kind of a transition from, like, Zandvoort banking on one end to the other. I mean, that would be fantastic. Shiesty slower by about a tenth on that final attempt. We do now have one of the Mercedes drivers making their way back. Sorry, that's the Aston Martin making their way in. Reimer on track right now, also on the full wets. Of course, as you can tell, the track not suited for the full wets at the moment. I think Reimer just doing one of those to get some practice in and perhaps get a feel for the car while keeping it safe. Curveball, I still don't believe, because I think we had a similar situation to this in Canada where we had drivers crash out in Q1. We started Q2 with only 14. So I'm curious. We do have the Aston Martin Shiesty making his way through 12 and 13. Now 6.5 minutes remaining here. Now, I thought what we were going to do is we were just going to have the drivers do one lap and come back in. That's not the case. These drivers have taken the time given to them, and they've actually turned this into more of a practice session, which I do appreciate here. I think this is something that's going to help out a lot of these drivers getting more time on the track with these cars. Because if you're like me and you show up to these races, you know, especially when you're racing, show up to these races with less than 30 minutes of practice. You know, that's a big thing if you can get out on track and actually put some laps together, and that's kind of what they're doing here. So if you're a driver who didn't have time to practice beforehand, you're here now with, you know, not necessarily an advantage, I would say, but you're... Oh, for God's sakes, don't do this to me. Did everybody just leave? That is massively disappointing there, has to be said. Thank you, Urban. Only communicating with online services now. What is this? Don't you dare tell me that this isn't going to work. Don't even do this to me. Oh, please? Please? Please, I'm begging you. I'd like to get back in here. No, ho, ho. Why? This, you gotta be kidding me, man. Honestly. I've leveled up to level 1. That's fantastic. Thank you, Urban. Appreciate it. Let's see if we can actually get in this time. I do not know who this person is who keeps commenting that. Please, please allow me to join. Thank you, DWCJ. Please. I really want to be in this.